I, 37, have a 13-year-old son. I was a widower when I met my now wife. She has a 16-year-old daughter from another relationship. The family is often on pretty good terms. My son is the quiet one in the house. He keeps to himself a lot, but not to the point of being concerning. My wife and stepdaughter are the complete opposite. They both encourage him to be outgoing and share activities and join gatherings with extended family. My son complained about having to be forced out of his comfort zone and having his need for space invalidated. I spoke to both my wife and stepdaughter and asked them to give him space and freedom to spend his time however he wanted. They apologized and promised to let him be. As Mother's Day was approaching, I wanted to throw my wife a surprise Mother's Day celebration. It was no longer a surprise because my stepdaughter gave her the heads so she could prepare. Yesterday I got off work earlier than usual to get final arrangements done. We planned to celebrate at the restaurant and invited her family there. I had the key, and while I was entering the house through the front door, I overheard my wife and stepdaughter talking to my son. My wife was asking my son if he could convince me to let him stay home and not go with them to the restaurant to celebrate. I paused and decided to keep listening. My son said why, and she told him that his introverted and socially inept attitude will make her family uncomfortable and will ruin the mood. He promised her that he'd be well behaved and would try to interact and socialize with everyone, but she said that she wasn't buying it. He kept reassuring her, but she snapped and told him that technically she's not his mom, so she didn't get why he wanted to celebrate Mother's Day with her so badly. My stepdaughter threw some, "I don't remember," backhanded comment, and then both of them were shocked to see me standing there. Both were staring without saying anything. I told my son and his stepsister to go to their rooms, then told my wife that the celebration was cancelled. She tried to argue, asking why repeatedly, and I told her why. She tried to explain that she didn't mean it like that and that I only heard part of the conversation, but not all of it. I told her I was done arguing and the decision was already made. She yelled, asking what she was going to tell her family, and said that I was making tremendous mistake towards her. I ignored her while she kept throwing tantrum after a tantrum. Early this morning she took my stepdaughter and went to stay with her folks. Not a single call or text from her so far. The situation is full of tension. I'm upset still, but more hurt, to be honest. I mean, yes, I did say I was going to have this celebration, but I thought that what she said to my son was too harsh to ignore. Not the idiot, no way, no how. What she said to your son is so far over the line. It would be ridiculously ironic to have a party celebrating her for Mother's Day. You need to protect your son, and given her and stepdaughter's behavior and the way your son just took it in that conversation, as though these were a normal sort of interaction, this is way too egregious to ignore. Honestly, I'd cancel the marriage too. Have a talk with your son and assure him that his wanting space and being quiet at times is perfectly normal. Find out how he's really been treated inside your home while you weren't present. Give him a hug for everyone else reading this post and hurting for him too. Not the idiot. Your poor son. Please tell me you went to talk to him after this. Your wife wants your son left out. I'd be having a serious conversation about that. If she doesn't drop it, if she doesn't start treating your son as a part of the family, I hate to say this, but divorce her, because no woman is worth losing your child over. You're a dual package. Her excuse about him being an introvert was crap. No way in hell he'd ruin a dinner by being polite and keeping to himself. She just wanted him out of there. Please be there for your son. She poked a bad wound with her comments. Being reminded you don't have a mother to celebrate on this day is terrible. Not the idiot. You caught her expressing her true feelings about your son, and she tried to cover her butt when she realized it. And then threw a fit when you didn't buy her excuses. I don't like to advise divorce under most circumstances, but the truth is you would be an idiot to your son if you didn't divorce this woman. She will never value him as she should and will keep trying to leave him out and treat him as if he isn't part of the family. As I'm sure you're well aware, that is completely unacceptable. As is the case in so many situations. She's shown you who she really is, believe her. I, 42, have one daughter with ex-fiancé, 35, who is 14 years old. My fiancé got pregnant shortly after with another child who ultimately turned out not to be mine. This girl is now 13, and she lives with my ex and her new husband. When my daughter was 2.5-year-old and her sister was almost 1-year-old, my fiancé revealed something crazy to me. Essentially, she had been living a double life, and the kids that I thought were mine were not in fact mine. I am somewhat clueless of a man and spent a lot of time working as I was an up-and-coming programmer at the time. On top of this, I am a total introvert, so I was completely blindsided by this. Essentially, my fiancé was really young when we met, and she was a poor college student at the time. She only hooked up with me because I had a good job and health insurance, and she told me she needed the insurance to get through the pregnancies. Now, some of this was a lie because DNA tests revealed that I was the father of the oldest girl. I should have been mad and outraged, but I was just sad. I actually tried to fight in courts to be the legal dad of the 1-year-old that was not biologically mine. I guess this makes me a jerk or a simp or whatever, but I got so attached in just a year. I lost the court battle and only got partial custody of my daughter. Surprisingly, we are able to co-parent well despite the traumatic background. My daughter and her half-sister are incredibly good friends and hang around in the same social circles. Therefore, when my daughter had birthday parties or any celebration or sleepover at my house, her sister always came along. I didn't mind this at all and supported it. So here is where I may be the idiot. I am doing very well for myself, whereas my ex-fiancé is not. Her and her husband, 4 kids total, live in an apartment that is about 15 minutes walk from my 3-bedroom house. The husband is not the dad of the 13-year-old, and he bolted long ago, leaving 13-year-old with a very absentee father. Additionally, their current stepdad is on disability and just lays in bed taking pills all day. Not a bad guy, but got into a work accident and got addicted, I guess. I pay more in child support than I am legally required because I know they use what I pay them for the other kids as well, and I want my daughter safe. I guess the conditions are not comfortable for my daughter and her half-sister, so they often walk to my house and stuff when they need to get away. One day the 13-year-old was really upset about something her bio dad did and even told me that I did more for her than he did. That's when I just let her know the truth about our history. Apparently this made her blow up at her mom, and she begged for me to adopt her basically, and now her mom doesn't want her at my house. I feel like I am not an idiot for just telling the truth, that I was legally her father for a year, but honestly I just let the truth out because I wanted her to know why I was so much for her. Am I the idiot for revealing the truth about her mom? Not the idiot. It always amazes me how people get mad when others learn the truth about them. If you're embarrassed to tell people, then why would you do it? She wanted to discuss parentage with you, and you told her the truth about hers. She's 13, which is just shy of the age where most kids are legally allowed to have input on which parent they live with. The court feels these kids are old enough. I can tell you that I hated learning about things much later in life and hated that family ever tried to hide stuff. It felt like betrayal. I always appreciated the adults who were upfront about it. Not the idiot. I read through the comments and I know I am in the minority. Keep taking care of your daughter and her sister. I am glad they have you in their corner. I read what you wrote above and to me. It says that you still view this little girl as your child despite everything, and I think that makes you a good person. Keep looking out for them, and good luck navigating the teenage girl years. The hardest thing I have ever done is be a 13-year-old girl. Please keep being a safe and loving, calm space in their lives. I don't think it is inappropriate at 13 to hear this information. I am a little surprised the girls did not already question the timeline themselves. Kids are way smarter than most of the people in this thread seem to give them credit for. Everyone's the idiot here apart from the daughter, I think. Yes, she has a right to know. But when she's already in emotional turmoil and wanting to escape was absolutely not the time. This is something that she is going to need to process with support around her. You blindsided her when her emotions were already heightened, and when you know she doesn't have the support at home. You also made it much more difficult for your ex to support her, and have added strain to the relationship between her and your other daughter, plus your 2 daughters. I can see your heart is in the right place, but this was poorly thought through. I know this will sound almost made up, but I swear on my mother's grave this isn't a karma farm or troll job. For part 1, we have been inundated with scorpions this year. We think it's the wet winter just caused an explosion of them. We have had them inside, outside, in the drains, clothes everywhere. We have an exterminator, but it takes time. So far no stings, thank God. Part 2 is my husband wears a CPAP mask. It works, and when he puts it on he goes into super sleep mode and is dead to the world. He had it on last night and I read, and out of the corner of the eye I just noticed a little black movement inside the hose that connects the humidifier to the mask. I really didn't think much of it, but figured I'd get our black light just in case. In the time it took me to turn out the overhead light and find a black light flashlight, the scorpion had moved up the hose much closer to his face. The black light verified that it was a scorpion. I panicked and ran out of the room. Husband must have sensed my movement and screams because he woke up and took his mask off to ask me what's wrong. I didn't see it, but I guess when he did, that the scorpion fell into his lap. He screamed at me that there was a scorpion in the bed and to bring him the black light. I said no, the scorpion is in your mask. Well, that caused him to freak out even more, but we were able to find a scorpion and kill it. He is so furious with me for not helping him when I saw the scorpion was close to his base. Like so furious he isn't speaking to me and texted me that he doesn't want to be around me for date night tonight. I feel bad, but I panicked and I don't know what I should have done anyways. Was I the idiot for how I reacted last night? I'm 50-50 on this one. Yes, you should have helped him, that is undeniable, but perhaps you are like my so who absolutely cannot function in a crisis. Period. He's over 6 feet, in good shape, and in his 5th decade, but if anything happens requiring a fast response and clear thinking to avert emergency or mitigate the damage, he just freezes up in fear and can't think at all. Luckily I'm almost always on hand to deal with a sick pet or someone having a seizure, and I have instructed him who to get help from if I'm not around. This is a problem and may not be something the OP can change about herself. You are the idiot. You are familiar enough with your scorpion infestation to have a black light in arm's reach of the bed, but your fight or flight instinct is so overwhelming over your instinct to protect your family that you bolt out of the room. I can see recoiling a few feet and some screaming, but your response is out of control. I just can't see that being a normal reaction to a known problem. Even when I had a spider drop down from the ceiling into my shirt, so I felt a sudden skittering on my boobs, I didn't have as strong of a reaction as you had to seeing a critter from a distance with a black light threatening someone you should care about. Not the idiot. You panicked. That's an unfortunate and unhelpful reaction, but a largely involuntary one. When I was much younger I had my first kitchen fire. Some oil went up in the pan, and the flames were a good 4 feet high. I knew full well that what I was supposed to do is slide a lid onto the pan and contain the fire. What I did do was pick up the pan and run into my living room. You know, the one with the carpeting and furniture and carpet? It was an immediate and involuntary reaction to a frightening situation I'd never been in before. I like to think that if it happens again I'll have more composure, and maybe you will too. This happened almost over a month ago and I'm 30, not sure if I was an idiot. My son recently started 1st grade and is enrolled at my old elementary school. We live in a smallish town. As luck would have it, he got the exact same teacher I had. Soon as I heard it was her I thought hell no. My wife told me to give it a day and see what my son thinks. As soon as he told me he didn't like how mean she was, I requested he get put into another class. Main reason is this teacher is absolutely horrible to all her students. I experienced firsthand how awful she was. She was that get in your face and yell at your kind of teacher who made it obvious just how much she doesn't like kids. This isn't even an exaggeration, there were tons of parents who complained about her behavior, but the school never did anything. One parent in particular, because she made one of my classmates wet himself and still yelled at him. She ruined my whole school experience and gave me so much anxiety daily. That's not something I want for my kids since the school was never going to do anything about her. A friend of mine who happens to work at the office heard that I transferred my kid out. Due to us being friends, I thought I could trust him and told him partially why I wanted this change. Because of her and how I have a very negative experience with her as a teacher, and my son is afraid of her. He found it hard to believe, but that's because she fakes being sweet to the other staff and parents. Word got to her apparently, because we had a confrontation, and she wants to know why I demanded my son be removed from her class. First of all, I was mad that she was even told at all, but I also told her it was because she's an awful teacher who verbally abuses her kids, and many parents have complained about her over the years. Told her a little about my experience, and also what she put my other classmates through, and that's the last thing I want for my son. This was all said with other parents around, since it was after school, so people were definitely watching and heard everything. Last thing I told her was she should have never been a teacher. This lady was very quiet, honestly looked like she wanted to cry, but she left. Some friends whose kids also go there agree she's awful, but the reason they think I'm an idiot is I embarrassed her in front of other parents and staff. And I should have remained civil towards her, otherwise I seem like any other disgruntled parent. Also for the fact that she's a lot older, don't know what that has to do with anything. My wife agrees with me, the teacher asked and I answered. But still would like to know if maybe I was an idiot for the way I reacted. Not the idiot, you have first-hand experience of her as a child. Your child expressed the same issues on the first day. There have been complaints for years, and nothing done, and she approached you. You are now the parent, but knew her from a child. You had every right to say every word. You tried to deal with it quietly. She approached you in public. I may be biased, my brother suffered at hand of a teacher like you, and it was only when multiple parents publicly went above the school's head that anything was done, as she was acting head and friends with most of the school governors, even had friends in the local council. Hopefully this will mean early retirement and a much better teacher for the school. Not the idiot, although I think it's best to hold back some and be extra respectful with elderly people, but that's just my preference. Being from a tiny town in Maine has its disadvantages. Everyone knows everyone and no one ever leaves. I had the same teacher for first grade as my mom had. She was ancient by the time I got there, and she was a yeller. My nana worked as head cook in the cafeteria. She overheard the teacher yelling at me for telling kids that my mom and her were bringing cake and ice cream for my birthday that day. I'd never heard my nana raise her voice until or after that day. She came in and told her right in front of the class she was never to so much as raise her voice in my direction. Not the idiot. You gave a career bully's reputation a jab, and you did your past self and your little boy proud. Good for you. I had an abusive teacher in primary school, and I am still scared of confronting him at 35 years old. Good for you for speaking up. People shouldn't be protected from the reality of their behavior. She traumatized generations of schoolchildren. She was also the one who came for you in public, so she has only herself to blame that this all came out in public. She probably counted on you still being afraid of her like you were as a child, thinking you wouldn't dare talk back to her. This internet stranger is so proud of you.